What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Motive. We are joined here today by
Charanjit.
Charanjit. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Charanjit.
It's lovely to be here.
Our first female guest.
No.
Yes, congratulations.
Yay.
So you are an online woman's coach?
Yeah, fitness coach.
Fitness
coach, yes.
And how long have you been doing that for?
So I qualified as a personal trainer last year, and I've been an online coach for the last about 5 months now. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And how's it going?
It's going really good. Really good. And in fact, today I just ended my job. So I'm going on a career break. So I've been a lawyer all my life. That's all I've ever known, law. But yeah, so today's like I'm full of emotions really because it was literally the last day.
And now you're doing a podcast.
That's it. Yeah, now I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah. That's a big milestone.
Yeah.
Man.
So how long you been a solicitor?
So I've been practicing for over 10 years.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a big jump.
Big jump, and it's such a completely different thing that I'm doing. Like to do law and then to now go into fitness. It's completely different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like a paradigm shift, isn't it? It's a total.
Yeah.
A big leap of faith.
Yes.
So take us back to like your start of your journey and
as to why I went into
just in general your life and stuff.
Life journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where were you raised?
Yeah. So I was brought up in Dagenham. Yes. So yeah, I lived there all my life with my family. Growing up was so we were pretty much the only Asian family in Dagenham, and going to school. Yeah, I was like, I think I was one of the only Asians in my school growing up. And it was only until I got married that I moved over to like more of a mixed area. But yeah, so
how did you find being the only Asian in a?
How did I find it? Oh, that's a good question, actually. So my dad, he wears a turban. And then my mum, I remember, used to wear like Asian clothes. It was obviously the world's very different now. It's like a different place. But I used to get quite embarrassed. I'm not going to lie. Like, I used to be embarrassed to go to, it sounds really awful now, but just even going to the shops and stuff, like, people did used to make comments, like, especially about like what my dad's turban and stuff like that. Never experienced anything at my school, so school was amazing. Like, absolutely loved it. And even in secondary school, like, despite being one of the only Asians, I never experienced like any racism from anyone at school. And I loved school. But my neighbours, I remember my next door neighbours, like, there were some difficult times. There were some really difficult times growing up. If you take me back, it was different there, like back in those times.
We can all kind of. I mean, my dad's told me stories even about what it was like for him coming over when he was young. But I hope you don't mind me saying, but you are technically disabled, aren't you?
Yes.
So. For anybody that doesn't know, what's the situation there?
So my parents have never actually been told as to why, like I had, like I've got my disability, because back in the days, like my mum didn't have a scan. So when I was born, it was a shock. Yeah, because my mum didn't have a scan. I think back in those days, like disabilities and things like that weren't really talked. Like, if you look at it now, it's a very much more open conversation you can have. Back then, you've got to think, like, we're talking over 30 years ago when I was born, and my mum and dad they had no idea that, I was going to be born with a disability. It was a huge shock to their system. So for me, like, sometimes I think back, when was that moment? That moment I actually realised I was different.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually remember that. But when I think about my childhood, and I've spoke about this in therapy, because I have had therapy, I'll be honest, and like, I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like, a time ago, if you would have said, I probably would have like been very secretive about that fact, because for me, having therapy always used to be like a sign of weakness. But now I'm actually quite proud of myself that I did have therapy, because what I do remember is growing up, my mum saying that when, like, obviously I was born, she was really upset. Her mum from India had to come over, I'll put it that way, to support her.
Yeah.
And that is, oh God, that is one of the first memories I like kind of have. And yeah, I'm only emotional. So my mum's now passed
was she
away.
telling
yeah.
you? Oh, sorry to hear
It's
that.
okay. It was never, and I've spoke about this in therapy, right? Because there's certain things that just a child will pick up what they want to hear, right?
Okay.
And I just remember feeling that pain. Does that make sense? And from a very young age, I must have just very quickly realised, you know, when you read the situation, that I was born, my mum was really sad, and I think she said she was depressed, you know, like she did fall into some level of depression. And automatically, I think that is when I just thought, right, I will never let my mum feel like I'm going to let her down. I'll never let her feel that I'm any different. Does that make sense? And I think that was really probably, when I look back, when people say, like, you know, you're so positive, you're so strong, it was probably very deep rooted from a very young age, like realising pretty much straight away. And another thing, like, I know, especially in the Asian culture, my mum, like, I've got another sister, and then there was me, and my mum said that straight after me, pretty much, she tried again for another baby. Now, I don't know if that's because they wanted a boy, but I guess in my little head, I always thought that, you know, they wanted a bit of joy. And I'm not saying it's that they ever thought, wasn't joy, like, you know, a blessing, but it was a difficult time for them, you know, like, do
you know what must have been quite interesting from your point of view is when you was a child, you didn't know any different.
No.
So there was nothing actually wrong with you as far as you were concerned. It was only when you probably started interacting with other people that you started, which, you know, sometimes the mother, you know, can be upset about these things. It's not like it's your fault or anything, right? But it's these things happen. But people need to don't know how to necessarily say process these things.
Maybe because they have expectations, isn't it? Of like, they're gonna have a kid, it's gonna,
everything's gonna be okay.
And it's like they don't know how to deal with that kind of that shock in a way. Because it's like now they're gonna have to cater things in a different way. Maybe they don't know themselves. So it's like,
I mean, that's exactly what we spoke about with my therapist. And she actually said, like, what if your mum just had postnatal depression? I was like, didn't even think of that. Did not even think of that. Because in my head, I was like, I've caused some level of pain here, you know, and didn't even think that maybe she probably did, because she did have loads of highs and lows, and it could have been she's just had postnatal depression. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And it must have been very tough because you blamed yourself for something that you had no control over anyway.
I think that's a big part of it. The control factor for me. It's pretty much up until last year, and like, although I'm sitting here and everyone's like, even on my social media, like, you know, I've reached a level of confidence, but this confidence has only literally come in the last few months, and I kid you not, because that is the actual word, control. I've spent all my life feeling like I didn't have a sense of control, because I was just born with something that I had no choice over, no control over, and like, it's tough, isn't
it was quite
like
traumatic.
it's like it was just tough, because I think what made it tougher is two things. Like, now I'm a parent myself, and it does make me think, because a lady actually on Instagram reached out to me on Instagram, saw my post and said, my daughter's got exactly the same, like, disability as you, and she said, oh, I give her tummy time, my daughter, and then I think, no, I'm not going to do it because, she might be in pain. And
what did you say?
Tummy time. You know, when you put, like, your child on their tummy, like in the early stages, to, you know, help them, like, just strengthen themselves. But when you've got, obviously, she said, like, with one hand, like, tummy time's a bit difficult, and her child was
balance.
So she was like, I can't do it, I'm going to turn her over.
She's scared.
And then I thought, And then another thing she said, like when I take my daughter out, a lot of people stare at her in the pram. It hit me. We had such an emotional conversation because I have never spoken to a mum on that level. And when I saw things from her view, like this lady, and I thought, I never thought about that. People probably, like what my mum went through. Does that make sense? Like my parents never saw it because my parents did mollycoddle me a lot. Yeah, like growing up, they were so protective over me, which was amazing, incredible, right? It is incredible. But sometimes deep down, I do wish, that maybe I was just treated differently, But I get it.
In what way?
They probably were very protective over me.
So you just wanted to be treated like just the same?
Same.
Okay.
The same.
Yeah, which I can understand that.
That's probably it. Like I used to cover my arms up all my life, long sleeve tops. Not when I was younger. I think when you're younger, you're in a bubble. I was in a very innocent, naive bubble. It didn't bother me. There was a period in my life, I think, growing up when I think it was maybe around my teenage years when you start becoming body conscious.
Okay.
That is when it changed. Like, I remember I used to wear short sleeve tops at school, but when I hit secondary school, that's probably where it changed. I become more body conscious, and that is when I started wearing long sleeve tops. Because in my culture, I'm going to be honest, so Asian society, and it was in my family as well. We tend to have, well, not now, back in them days, arranged marriages. Okay?
Yes, of course.
A lot of it is looks based. It is a lot of it is focused on how you look.
Okay.
Because it's arranged. It's essentially between the parents. It's their decision. Are you good enough for my son?
Yeah. And most of the time it would have been based solely on looks?
Pretty much.
Really? That's interesting.
That's what I believe.
I didn't realise that, to be
looks, money, education,
there we go.
Those kind of things,
So there were other parameters as well outside of just looks.
Yeah,
because you can see like parents think their kids are the best, isn't it? So it's like, well, that kid has to be good enough for my kid, kind of thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's true.
If you met my mum, there'd be no one that's good enough. Good enough for me.
Yeah. And I had that growing up a lot.
Did you?
Yeah, like no one was good enough for me, but eventually, now it's different. But
now you're not good enough for her.
Yeah, now I'm not good enough for the mum.
Just got a thumbs up.
But those two factors sort of played. So not only was it me growing up starting to care a bit more about how I looked, in the background, like that come a bit later, because I used to go to the temple and I was around a lot of women, and people would ask all the time, oh, what? But it was so dramatic. Oh my God, what's happened to her, kind of thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I was brought up with a lot of that, like just what's wrong with her, And then in my teenage years, I wouldn't say I was a big girl, but I remember about 13, I liked my food. I really enjoyed my food. We all love food, and we should love food.
Culturally as well, when you're getting cooked nice foods as well,
especially in India.
Yeah,
spices and the
exactly.
flavors, the best.
And I remember this time where I was wearing these. I remember it so clearly because that was the point that probably changed my life. And I was wearing these trousers, and my aunt said, made a comment like, you're putting on weight, kind of thing. And that was the comment that changed the rest of like the next good few years of me, because I just thought, oh my God, I need to, I've got this arm, and now I'm putting on weight. And no, I need to look a certain way because I'm already at a disadvantage here of finding someone and that was it really. I just stopped. I pretty much followed like a diet, and I was still quite young, like at secondary school, and I did lose a lot of weight. But before I knew it, it led to an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't understand this. An eating disorder is the control. I love the control. I love the element of I'm now in control. Okay, it's quite emotional.
Because you didn't have it before, isn't it, kind of thing? You felt like you didn't have it before, so now you've got something you're in control of. Yeah. In terms of your
it was like it was like I can control the way I look. I'm getting compliments. Everyone's telling me I look skinny. I look really good, and the focus shifted. you know, like from there to like, you know, you then get attached to that kind of, you know, you get attached to, oh, I look so skinny, that's taking over, you know.
Yeah, and then you can't see the actual the truth anymore.
Yeah.
You're too like into it.
The only thing you could kind of say in that situation is like, although you felt like you had certain things you had no control over, the fact that you took control of something is actually more of a positive than it is a negative, because most people can go a lot further down the rabbit hole, a lot further, and therefore there's a lot more pieces to pick up. So from what you're explaining in that situation, it sounds like you turned something like anything that you did have kind of a hold of, you tried to make the best.
That's probably
the best situation of it, like you possibly could. Don't get me wrong, the pendulum swings, and therefore where you said you created a eating disorder, that's probably where the pendulum went the other way.
Yes.
Because I'm exactly the same. As soon as I say to myself, right, I need to lose weight, all of a sudden I stop eating.
Yeah.
Which is not like the healthy way to
do it. But I've never looked at it like that actually. But I think it's quite interesting, because I think that's probably how I always do try and find a way of, you know, like trying to, like the intention was good. Do you see what, like, I'm going to take a bit of control? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
But like you said, it's a fine line. So that was all going on in terms of like me and like the eating disorder. At the same time, like this is like, I mean, I'm talking over a period of a few years, like in the teens. I remember one of my relatives, so when I was younger, I didn't wear a prosthetic arm. The doctors offered it to me from a very young age, and my parents used to tell me, they're like, we tried it, but you hated it as a kid. You should just throw it off. Like clearly as a kid, you don't want to wear something so restrictive. So I never thought about it, right? And then, like I said, so I'm hitting this time where I'm like 15, 16, and one of my, you know, family members said, why don't you get a prosthetic arm? Because I think I was wearing a lot of long sleeve tops and it just flopped. You know, like everything feels symmetrical until I get to this is how I used to feel. And then there it is. There's my arm. It's just not symmetrical and there's no shape. And she meant it in the best possible way. She was like, maybe that will help with your confidence, right? So I was like, okay, I'm like, you know, I'm getting a bit older. Why don't I go and revisit it? So that's what I did. I went back to the hospital and I got a prosthetic arm, like a really heavy, it's made, you know, really heavy arm, which doesn't move. So I just...
Because back then as well, they probably weren't very well developed, were they? It was just...
Compared to now.
Yeah, very solid and like... the ones you see now, like, it's
really good.
Very impressive, yeah.
But I remember, how funny is this? The first time I wore it, because I was going to Cambridge University for a trip, I left my house. I got down to the middle of the road. I was like, oh shit, where's my arm? Like, I wasn't even dependent on it at all. It was like, oh my God, I need to go back and get my arm. Like, it was just not even a thing.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of years, I wouldn't even leave the house without my arm. Oh, wow. Because again, that thing you're saying, which something can start off quite, you know, a non-dependency, you know, you've got a good relationship, can quite easily with me. That's probably what happened.
So was this during the same time as your eating disorder?
Yeah, so in the background I've got like, I was really skinny, you know, from like secondary school all the way up until probably like once you've got an eating disorder, even though I was out of the peak of it by like in my early 20s, but once you've got an eating disorder, there's certain things that you still think, you know, the way you perceive certain things is still there. Like I'd got out of the peak of it, but even up until like a couple years ago, like I've only when I met my husband when I was like 27, I didn't used to eat chocolate still, you know.
Wow. And pretty impressive.
No, but it was more of a fear.
Yeah, was it?
It was a fear. It wasn't because I didn't enjoy it. It was a fear of I'm going to get fat. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't like, you know, and even up until a few years ago, the eating disorder, like not to the scale it used to be, was still very much there. Do you know what I mean? A fear of being fat, which is horrible as that sounds now. Like, you know, I would never say stuff like that now, but I'm being really honest with you.
Yeah.
That is what my fear was, because I guess in the back of my head, I thought, if you gain weight, you're going to what is there to you? Does that make sense? Because I had such low self-esteem already that everything started depending on the way I looked. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Can you tell us a bit more about your journey of how you overcome the eating disorder? Your journey.
Because it hit a peak. I remember, like, it just hit a point where I lost my period was the peak.
Okay.
And that's really dangerous for a woman, because if you lose your, like, if you stop having a period, there's a risk you're not going to have children.
And that was due to the fact that because of your diet.
I just was eating like not much food at all, the calories, and I was fighting. I remember fighting with my mum, and I used to get a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, I was paranoid. You know, I used to accuse her. I was like, "You've put oil in my food." I remember this one day; it was horrific. It was so bad. You just feel guilty. I feel guilty. I do feel guilty because. I feel guilty because it did affect my relationship with my mum a lot, and she was so good.
Yeah,
but
you have to be a bit careful about guilt though, because you also went through quite a level of trauma, and you blame yourself for periods of moment in times that how you acted and behaved, but you have to put everything in the whole perspective of what you actually went through and gone through. So you might feel guilty about that whole moment, but anyone else that's gone through a very similar journey, or like they've probably acted and behaved in ways that they don't feel proud about either. But you got to have a level of compassion towards yourself.
I know, I'm not very compassionate.
No. Neither am I. But
that was like, so it got to that point where I was literally accusing her and like just throwing, like saying, "You've put extra oil in it, I'm not eating it." It was just an excuse not to eat. And then it got to that point, like I said, where I lost my period. And then it was my sister who literally turned around and said to me, like, because like I love my sister so much and like I respect her on so many levels, she just turned around one day and said to me, like, I can't remember, it was like an ultimatum. And that was literally it. Like, it was just that moment. And I thought, no. Yeah, because I was like, I do want children. Like, what am I doing? Do you see what I mean? But that was like the light bulb moment that it, like, I stopped, being as conscious,
So you just started to eat more and just...
Started to eat more, but I'd say the real change, if I'm going to be honest, was... probably after starting my fitness journey, which was only like in the last few years, because so I met my husband, right?
Was that an arranged marriage?
No, we met. So this is what happened. It was getting to that point where my mum was like, "You need to meet someone," and she was introducing me people from India, and that was quite tough. I'm not gonna lie, because that automatically in my head set the bar. Like, it was just that thing up, like. Nothing wrong with marrying someone from like a different country, but I thought when someone tells you that, like, you're going to marry someone from abroad who can't speak English, who doesn't have a job, it just your self-esteem goes quite down, doesn't it? Because you think like, but no, it's like more to me than that, isn't it? Like, I'm more than just like,
you felt you deserved more than that.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
But while it's suitable for some people, it's not I think what you were just working out there is what you actually wanted. Which is that's all that is, isn't it? So it's not an unreasonable.
So there was that going on. So I had that kind of pressure. Like, my sister had arranged marriage, my cousins did, and it was like, I've got to find someone. Literally, if I don't find someone myself, this is the route my life's going down. And I was like, but I don't want that life. Do you see what I mean? Like, I can find someone like, I'm a nice person. Somebody, and then I ended up meeting my husband online, and he was so nice about my arm, because obviously it's a difficult one, right? When you meet someone, because especially if it was online, I was like, do you tell him about your arm? Is that going to affect? Is it going to be like, see you later kind of thing? Does that make sense? It's always been that thing, like, at what point do you tell them? And he was like absolutely amazing about it. And I think that's like kind of it was validation, isn't it? Again, because it's like someone has accepted me for who I am, which probably did help my confidence quite a bit. Does that make sense? But again, it's always an external validation that I've relied upon. That has always been the kind of pattern,
rather than validating yourself
from myself.
Because I know we've gone well past it, but like, when we spoke to Anthony, you obviously saw this is how it all happened, didn't it? You saw Anthony's post and you got in touch, right? He spoke about the fact that what he felt was a burden or a curse was actually his superpower. And I think the challenge that you had in your situation is that you was a completely different era. There wasn't a lot of education, and I'd like to think that a parent now would empower their child and make them feel like this is actually
who you are.
Yeah, who you are. Don't try and run from who you are, or pretend like you're something you're not, or be disappointed or shamed. Because ultimately, and I think that's where like we're learning through all our journeys 100%. Through, whether it's cultural or whether it's just generational, whatever it is. That we've got to get a bit better at that when it comes to making people feel like they're actually, they're worthy.
Celebrate themselves.
Yeah.
And like, I don't ever want to say like, and obviously I'm not sitting here saying that what my parents did was harmful, or my parents were absolutely incredible. But I just think it was, like you said, society, arranged marriage, pressure coming from them. They didn't know like how to do it. They did, no one they just had to navigate themselves, But you're 100% right. When I used to say to my mum, and I only want to wear long sleeve tops, and she would go, oh my God, she would literally find me about 100 different long sleeve tops and have everything ready. But what I would now do with my children is, if my child says, look, I want to cover my arm up, I'll be like, no, you're not. No, you absolutely wear that like a you're not.
Badge of honour.
Yes.
Installing it in them, isn't
that it? Is the change I want to bring about. That is exactly it. Because, and that is what turned me towards like the fitness journey, is because so now, like obviously the chapter of my life I'm in, it is about self-acceptance, self-love, accepting yourself. And that thing you said about, like, as much as, like, now I can finally look at my arm, right? Because it's only taken me, I'd say, in the last few months. And, like, me being completely transparent, even up until last year, my colleague was telling me, she was like, there's this celebrity in the media, they've got the arm like yours, but they've got no fingers on it. And it was the fingers that always used to bug me. I can't lie. Because whenever someone used to look at my arm, especially kids, it was the fingers that used to
be in your head, though.
I don't know if it was in my head or
no, there was probably an element of truth.
Yeah,
like
probably in my head, isn't it?
No one said anything though about.
Well, children, but they're children, right?
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, all my life I've had that. I'm sitting on the train. People whisper, they stare. It used to bug the hell out of me. And the amount of times I wish I could just get up and say, "Can you stop whispering?" Because it's so hurtful. Do you know what I mean? It's so hurtful. When I've seen it all. Like people, like two adults sitting there, they'd be like, "Nudge, look." Like
some people know, like
is it ignorant? Ignorance.
No.
Yeah. But do you know what? Like I think because I'm feeling quite wild up from what you're saying, and like I think the reality of all of this is fuck everyone. Like it doesn't like they have no bearing. I mean, if you really wanted to get deep into their lives, I'm sure you find a few skeletons in their closets as well, and that's always and you've got to have like quite a resilient mindset to go about your life day by day, and do what you do, because like there are some horrible people out there as well, and as far as I'm concerned, I think like this validation from other people, it has to be more about you validating yourself
100%. Because I realised, like, even when I started wearing the prosthetic arm to fit in, I was still getting people looking at me, and that's when I thought, what is the point? Why are you doing this
people
to fit in? Because I can't win either way, and that was like another turning point.
You can win in one way, because it's almost like taking control of your own life and just basically saying fuck them. Like that's the only control that you really truly have. Everything else is
it's just it's not
a hindrance as such.
It's true. Then I had the kids, and I thought, I'm not wearing my arm because how can I pick my children up? Then I slowly just stopped wearing the arm bit by bit. And that was really the start of it, I think, just slowly weaning myself off of my arm. Mm-hmm. But even up until last year, like my colleague was like, I actually said to her, I'm going to admit this, up until last year, I had a crazy idea. I was like, I'm going to have my fingers removed. Yeah. It's sad to think that I was thinking that, but that was what was going through my head. I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to get the fingers. They're going to go. It's going to look so much nicer. But that was a very short-lived, thought. Thank God. And then fast forward that, like, obviously I had therapy. And that was when I had this moment in my therapy session, which I didn't think. We used to have sessions and I was like, no, my childhood was fine. But we had this, it was like an out-of-body experience. I remember it because I just lost control and I sobbed. And it was like the child in me. I felt like me as a child going back to this moment where I was at a swimming pool. When you go swimming as a child with the class. And I've hated swimming. But there must have been a memory that I'd tucked so far back in my mind. And then in therapy, like it just come out. And it was me at swimming and I hated it because I couldn't swim. Like I hated wearing a swimming costume. Like I just hated it so much. And when I took myself back to that moment and all that emotion and pain come out, and then we stopped my therapy. And that was the first year, which was only last year. I went on holiday and I was like, I'm going to wear short sleeve stuff. Wow. And that was it. But then I was like, okay, I'll come back to this country. Still went back to covering up. But slowly. And then I've obviously qualified as an online coach. And I just thought, right, I'm just going to do it. I just started putting myself out there. And then when you do it in front of a camera, I didn't feel scared because I feel like no one can judge me. Like, I'm putting myself out there. But it's different to when you see people in real life and I can see their reaction. It was almost like it was still a level of protection there. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But where I've been doing that for the last few months and my confidence has just grown and grown and grown to the point where 2 weeks ago, I got on the train and this is the first time that I've now wore a short sleeve top. I wasn't sure if it was just like a temporary thing, but since then I've now just started wearing short sleeve tops. Amazing, so yeah.
Well done to you.
Amazing. Like the growth in the last year has just been
exponential.
Yes,
yeah. And do you know what? Even because you're on social media a lot, and some people can't even put themselves on social media. So like you're really kind of climbing some mountains from what I can see. And now you've just stopped your job as well as a solicitor, a lawyer. But the good thing about that is I don't know if you can, but can you always go back to...
I can go back to it. Like that door's always there. I just think with law, I did that because like I said, the pressure of trying to get, again, it was all part of that me trying to probably doing it for other people. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And where over the last few years, I'm still finding myself as a person. And I used to do my job like in corporate firms, but something was just killing me inside. And I was like, so my mum passed away 4 years ago, right?
Sorry to hear that.
I think that was a turning point for me because I just thought she died quite young. And I thought, I don't want to spend I don't know how long I'm on this planet for, honestly. But I want to make sure that every day I get up, I'm enjoying what I do. And that was it. So that feeling just becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And I thought, and it literally, I walked into my boss's office one day and I was like, I want to quit. I don't want to do this. And I just want to go for it because I've just started, like I said, doing the fitness coaching and I'm meeting so many incredible women and, women who struggle with nutrition, women who struggle with their appearance, women who lack self-confidence, everything that I can relate to. And I want to help women feel amazing in their skin. Not even just like because they look slim or just, it's about feeling good, isn't it? That's like, that inner confidence is what shines on the outside to me. So that's my goal really, isn't it? Just to like help as many women.
So how much would you say that it's psychological versus aesthetical? Like when it comes to like women on these kind of weight journeys, you're obviously like a mentor to them, right? How much of it, in your opinion, has been around the fact of what they actually perceive of themselves versus how they actually look?
I'd say so much of it is the psychological, 100%. And then, because I can relate to it, because that probably, when I speak to some of my clients and I say, how long have you, because that's like a job as a coach. Like my job is to get to the bottom of it. That's what I like to do. When you go back to the root of it, it is something that stems from their childhood, like similar to mine, that they've carried on without knowing. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like, and it's about getting women to be kinder to themselves and, working on those kind of skills as well, which is so important.
And obviously you've got your own kind of adversity that you've gone through, so therefore you can, it's about relatability that we spoke about previously. Like you can obviously relate to these people.
A lot of women, which is why I think I love doing it.
So how do you like, that's quite a responsibility, isn't it? How do you find it easier to help other people rather than almost be a bit more self-absorbed and then it's like feeling sorry for yourself? Is it a lot easier for you to look after other people? And
it's quite interesting actually, because I'm quite a motherly figure. I always have been. Like, I do tend to look after, like, even my children. Like, I just naturally have those traits, and my mum was always the same. But I think now I don't feel sorry for myself, if I'm going to be honest, because I've turned that corner in my life, and I genuinely just look like coaching women because I'm on the mission, I guess, I want women to feel like I've wasted so much of my life feeling, like covering up. I've lost so
feeling
much
sorry
of my
for yourself,
I
feeling
have.
like a victim.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah,
it's a limited mindset. It's it's everything that I'm like. Yeah, like.
And so what you're saying is this has kind of liberated you from all of that old trauma by helping people. It's basically you healing yourself in the process and making you feel better along the journey, which is ultimately the cure for anybody's trauma.
True.
It's not like, which is quite interesting because, I feel like I went through something similar. And this was a big part of wanting to start the podcast because a lot of it is around trying to help motivate people, inspire people. So it's a way of giving back. And I remember hearing a saying about when you're trying to heal other people, you're trying to heal yourself in the process. Which is it's still a noble duty, because being self-absorbed and feeling like you're a victim and you're powerless, that becomes wasteful.
Yes.
What can you do with that? You can't do anything. You just sit there and feeling sorry for yourself over and over again. And then for what? At least by doing what you're doing, you're giving back and helping, not only helping yourself, but now you're helping other people in the process. And that was the same for, Anthony with what he was doing. And to be fair, for a lot of what these guests have been doing is they've had something quite negative or traumatic that's happened to them, but they've decided to take control of their own life, their own destiny, and say, I'm not going to let that define me.
Yes. Because now, like, before, like I say, even up until last year, I couldn't look a picture of myself. I would never associate myself as a person with a disability. 100% I know that. And now, if I want to sit on that, when you sit on a bus and there's like a disabled seat, I will sit on that chair. Because I think all my life I've been very hard on myself. Like, in my head, I've just been like, I'm just like everyone else. And I am, but I'm not. Like, I do struggle. But I would never let myself believe that. And only recently I'm like, but you do struggle. You do. Yeah. Like, I've got to be kinder to myself. Do you see what I mean? And I used to, like, when you go shopping, just rush my bags and pack all my stuff up, because I was just always like,
conscious.
Now I'm like, I'm going to take my time. Like, I can't pack my bags as quick as everyone else. So why are you trying to make your life even harder? Do you see what I mean?
It's tough because it's kind of like you're living for other people a little bit. Just to other people's opinions or other people's thoughts. So how are you going to make everyone
else happy?
Else happy.
Where you got to just do it for yourself and
live. We've spoken about it though, haven't we? Like how like a cultural thing. How you're always trying to make everyone else happy.
Yeah, and then like, you miss out on yourself, isn't it? Sometimes
you have an identity crisis.
But really, if you love yourself and you make yourself a priority, people respect that.
Yes.
And then they respect you for that, and then they appreciate that, and then you get that self-worth, and you do things for you, and it's better.
Yeah,
it makes you stronger.
So even up until last year, I couldn't look at myself. Because I couldn't, like,
it's quite recent, isn't it?
Not long ago. I'm telling you, like,
how old are you? Sorry,
I'm 37.
Oh, you 37. Okay? You look very young, so like you definitely don't look 37. But that's a long
time.
Yeah,
that is
a long
it's
time. Like exactly. Like how many
years? To hold that on. How does it feel like you've had a release?
Yes, because I couldn't look at myself, and because I never saw myself as someone with a disability, and that's the truth. I wouldn't look at a picture of myself because I used to cringe. I used to look at that photo or that footage and be like I would want to, like, I found it cringeworthy. Was now, like, obviously I see my post, like, I can't explain how liberating it is that I look at my posts and sometimes, I look at them again and again and I think, oh my God, like, because you accept, like, it's connecting now, like, that is how you look. That is you. Yeah. The two things have now connected, was before it was like...
You're suppressing. you're pretending like it's not.
It was a disconnection. That's not me. That's not my arm. Like, that is not how I look.
Yeah, it's your self-identity, isn't it? You're not identifying with yourself, maybe, but now
I wasn't.
Now your self-identity is in tune.
It's all
and you're happy with it, and it's
yourself. It's that.
Do you know what I was told quite a while ago about you have to associate yourself with these things to dissociate yourself. Right. If you pretend like it doesn't exist, it lies almost like dormant there, and it's like someone's knocking at your door constantly. But as soon as you kind of look at it in its entirety, all of the weight comes off of your shoulders because you're almost embracing it rather than trying to push it back and pretend like
that it's rejecting it.
Yeah, you're trying to reject it, but you can't reject it. It's impossible. Yeah,
because it just eats you up. It does.
Yeah, it just eats you up inside.
And now, like, if someone was to say to me, "Would you?" Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm not going to lie. Would I still want to? Would I still want another full arm? Yes, I would. But I wouldn't be me without this, like, with my mum, and I've come to realise that. So I wouldn't, like, if someone now said to me, "What would you have it?" I wouldn't be who I am.
No,
I think some of my traits, some of my things, the way I am, and I've always had this mindset, like, you get back up, you find a solution. Like, when people say to me, like, "You're so strong and you're so because I am so positive. Because again, I think it stems from that place when I was a child. If anyone was sad around me, it's like, no. And because I trained myself from such a young age to, like, show that positive energy to my mum in a good way, it's just stuck.
Yeah.
So, like, it just becomes a part of you. So, like, I'm always like, and I'm not saying I don't have my down days. I'm very open about that. Like, I've been through trauma. After my mum died away, I was in a very, very dark place. I really struggle with that. But I will always get back up, and I think, it's what...
Oh, that's the key to it all, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel sorry for yourself for a period of time and have compassion. Yeah. But do you know what? One thing I learned a long time ago is we're all dealt a hand of cards, and like sometimes we're too busy ignoring the cards that we've been dealt, and the truth is you just got to play the cards that you're dealt with.
Yes.
Like, and just maximize your live a full maximum life based on what you've been given. Not trying to worry about, I want to change my hand. Yeah. You can't change your hand.
Some cards are like dealt a worse hand.
A lot.
A bit better.
So true.
Yeah.
There's so many different hands that are dealt. So.
The perspective thing of, like, some people are begging to have our lives.
I know.
Like, they're begging to have our lives, and
Yeah, there's a saying: if we put all our problems in the middle, then you'd probably pick our ones back.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone else's.
Yeah, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know how to deal with your own. Can you imagine having to reset the clock and dealing with different type of problems?
Yeah. But I think the stage I'm at now is, like, even up until last week, because now I'm starting to wear short sleeve tops. I went to pick my son up from school, and now he's covering my arm up. So I went to pick him up from school, and he just slowly put my sleeve down, and I said, "What are you doing?" I'm dealing with that at the moment, but that's probably because he's not used to me wearing. No. So,
but you have to have compassion to him as well, through an educational way. It's just education. Yeah. All it is education. Yeah. And unfortunately, in schools, because there isn't loads of people with this situation, it's like there's not enough awareness around it.
Yeah.
Because Anthony was literally one person in the school who was disabled. So, so it was very hard to shift everyone's mindsets. Yeah. But it's a lot easier probably to influence your children than it is the rest of the world, isn't it?
I think your journey is just beginning as well.
It is. I'm excited.
Literally just beginning.
I literally am.
Think about all the people you're going to inspire and motivate and it's amazing.
Yeah, I literally do feel like I'm feeling excited is how I feel right now, because I feel like I don't know what I'm going to do now. Like, it's scary. When you feel like now I'm finding myself and my confidence is just, like, increasing, and
now the world is yours.
It's exciting,
kind of
Yeah.
Well, excited. Big day today as well. So we're very lucky to share this with you. But you are obviously a very brave person. Like, you've come on here and you've, like, really opened up, and that takes, a special type of person to be able to do that. So, I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's an honor, man, to have you on and hear your story. And
So where are you going? So where do you see your next?
What's next?
What's next? Well, I don't know. Maybe I've always wanted to maybe write a book.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do a podcast. It's happened, you know.
There you
go. I don't know. Sometimes there's things you put out there that they might just, you know, like the world's my oyster. This is how I see it, isn't it? Like the world is your oyster. I always have that mindset, like you can do anything, and I don't want to limit my mindset anymore. You know, because I've spent so many years just, you know, you can talk yourself out of it, out of anything, isn't it? Because you just start 100%. Doubting yourself. You can just, you know, but like now where I am, I'm just, like after last week, I went on this like mentorship course, and even then I
think I saw that.
Yeah, I was so influenced by the
masterminds.
Yeah, the people. I attract energy. I'm an energy person. I've always been around that. Like I bounce off of good energy. But I've always been like that. So when I went on that talk, and they were just reaffirming the fact that, you know, your mindset, you've got to stop self-sabotage behavior, because I've probably done that all my life, and it's very easy for me to get back into that mindset. But now I'm like, I will not have any sort of negative thoughts. I will just bat them out and just keep going over like all of the positive things. And I think the main thing is that I just believe in myself, and that probably is the truth. Like, and I'm not saying that in an arrogant way or anything like that. I just feel like I do believe in myself, and you need that, don't you?
Have you heard of psycho-cybernetics?
Yeah. Sorry,
psycho-cybernetics.
Not heard.
It's very good, man. It's like the new cutting-edge science about like your self-belief and your self-image.
Wow.
So I'll give you some links. It's amazing. I think you'd really enjoy.
I think that's what it is. That's the difference between, there could be two people just as, like, I don't know, talented or whatever it is, but the person who's going to believe in themselves and just think like, I'm going to go for it. Now, what's the worst that's going to happen? Do you see what I mean? Like you've tried something new, like I'm trying this. What is the worst? It doesn't work out. I know my life will take me, always has, to the place I need to be, you know?
As long as you're trying and you've got some belief.
Yeah.
It's the magic of believing, isn't it? There's a magic in it.
Yeah. And I feel like obviously my mum's not here, and I sometimes do think like, how would she feel like, because she didn't see this part of me. You've got to think, when she passed away, I was still very, very much, you know, wearing the long sleeve stuff. I would love to think like what she'd think of me now. Like, I wish obviously I had this belief in me back then. Does that make sense? And for her to have seen it.
Do you think she would have encouraged it?
I think she would have loved it. She would have.
I think you might have needed to have educated her a little bit, like, because of this generational thing. Because do you know what's quite interesting actually is that how much as I've got stronger and older, how much I actually educate my father as well. Yeah. I mean, he still educates me in a hell of a lot of ways, but there's a very modern day approach to life that some people don't quite get later on as you get older, because it's hard to keep changing and like all these new things you've got to keep learning and growing and changing.
Have kids so they can teach you, really. Your kids should teach you. And I know the parents teach the kids, but ultimately your kids are going to teach you a lot about yourself.
Yeah, they do. And what we spoke about in therapy was, because I know when my mum, she was very short, very, very short. So she had...
What, in height?
Short in height. Oh, okay. And she had that growing up. Her mum saying, you know, you're really short, you're never going to get married So she found, she ended up getting married to my dad, who's from England. So in therapy, we spoke about that, like her childhood was very
limiting belief.
Similar. And you end up, when you're a parent, you're either going to be exactly the same as your parent or nothing like them.
An extension.
You know? Yes.
To break it.
Do you know what this is like? This is exactly like what I believe. As we kind of go through life, there are chains of our ancestors, as you call it. Yeah. Like the chains are there, and we can either carry that trauma on and carry it to the next child, or we can actually break it. And I think it is everybody's duty to break that chain, because otherwise it will
never stop, will it?
It will never stop.
A big level of self-awareness though, man.
Massive
level. But it's true what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Because what happens, you don't accept yourself, so your children don't accept themselves, and then their children don't accept, so nobody accepts themselves, and then but do you know what, sooner or later someone will
break.
Someone has to break it. Nobody can, like, I think like maybe these traumas were necessary at a period of time. You could argue maybe years ago it might have been serving for your ancestors to be a certain type of way. But as we go through the generations, we have to evolve ourselves. Because if we don't evolve, then we're using old methods in a new day and age. Yeah. So I think there's a big responsibility that a lot of people don't seem to understand that they have. But we all have it. Like everybody has it. There is, I was listening to a guy recently, and he was like, I didn't want to be the weakest link in my generation. And it was like he could clearly see the responsibility that he had on his shoulders. So I think it's good to be responsible though. I think a fundamental part of life is being responsible. I actually found through being more responsible in life, my life actually started changing for the better anyway. And so, and like from what you do is that you're being responsible by trying to heal other people. Like there's no obligation to do that. You could just sit there feeling sorry for yourself, right? Yeah. But you either break the chain or you try and do something different. Or sorry, you keep the chain or you try
do something different.
Do something different. So, and it takes courage, and and it sounds like you're doing that. But you're doing it for the best of everybody, including yourself, your family, and it isn't all about you anymore now. It's about everybody around you.
Well, even my children, I don't want them to, like, even with like if you have like the eating disorder, you don't want to, children pick up on certain things, isn't it? Like you said, you just, I'm responsible now. It's like a different level of responsibility.
I bet your kids are well proud of you. Like
they are actually. I think it was so sweet on Mother's Day. They wrote me such a beautiful message, and they said, "Mum, we can see how much you love your clients." Like my online coaching clients. That just, I don't know, that hit me a lot. It hit me a lot to see they were just like, the way they're so proud of me now. It's
when they'll get older and they're more mature. I don't know, how old are your children?
They're like 8 and 6.
8 and 6. When they get older and they realise what their mum went through and what she done in the process, they'll be very proud. So
I hope so.
And where you're heading as well, I think we have no idea how far you're going to take it, and it's going to be
exciting.
Super good.
Yeah, because like after my mum passed away, like I did start turning to drink. I'm not going to lie about that, because my mum's death was very unexpected. So she had cancer. We didn't know that. So by the time I found out, it was like stage 4 cancer, and that was it.
Did she hide it?
She did. Yeah, she did. She did hide it, and that was something I had to. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
That's super tough, man.
It's tough. It was tough because she made a choice. I felt like I had no say in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
She did what was right for her at that time, but it was a shock. It was such a shock, you know.
That was kind of like, I don't want to bother anyone and like make it like telling you, I don't want to create a big deal out of nothing or something like that. So I just.
She knew she had it, and she just kept it like to herself, dealt with it. And obviously, by the time I found out, it was like, it was stage 4. So that year was so tough because we literally watched her die. So that was
from nowhere. Yeah, sorry about that.
Did she have any? She didn't have no treatment or nothing, or
she did. She did have treatments. That was really tough to watch as well. But that was hard because I always felt me and my mum's bond. Like I always felt she was the only one who probably understood, like me and my arm, like in a weirdest way. I felt like I had that connection with her that no one else could really understand what I was going through because, like she gave birth to me, right?
Yeah.
So when she passed away, obviously, like my whole life changed. Do you know what I mean? It was so then I didn't know how to cope. I did start drinking a bit more than, like it was more the case I was just drinking straight shots.
As a coping mechanism.
It was my coping mechanism. I went off of track in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%.
Because then it was that one January I thought, no, Like, where am I going? Does that make sense? And that was the January. I got myself a personal trainer. Check. Yeah, I got myself a personal trainer.
What was the pinnacle? What was there's always one pinnacle.
Really?
There's what it is there's something so painful that happens when no amount of drugs or alcohol or anything will hold it down anymore. Like, there's something that like becomes. Can you remember what that might have been?
I've not actually even stopped to think about it.
Because it's really interesting. Because what happens is that for us to sometimes have that light bulb, we end up being in a level of pain that we don't quite realise we're in because we're too busy drinking or we're doing things,
distracting as
well. But if you really connect with what that pain is, you're like, fuck this, I'm out. Like, I need to do something about this. I can't keep sitting with this.
You hit that bottom. Now you've got to change.
I don't know, because like, it wasn't the case. I don't know. Like, I didn't hit like, because it didn't obviously turn into like an addiction or anything like that. Does that make sense? It was like, you could quite easily get away with thinking, and my friends probably thought, she just likes to drink a little bit more, and that's probably the danger of it, right? Like, it was very subtle. Like, it wasn't the case of like, and I didn't have, like I said, I wasn't sitting at home drinking. It was just when I would go out socially, I would just have straight alcohol with no mixers. And then obviously it was, where I was a lightweight, it was getting to my head. But now I look back and I thought, why would you just have straight alcohol without the mixers? And I know why, because probably back then I just wanted something quick that was just going to do the job and take me to a place of, you think it was happiness, but then after, like, I remember the next day I felt awful. Like, you feel so emotional.
Yes,
you know, it was worse. It was actually worse. And what was happening is I started getting, like, my confidence was going downhill as well, because I turned into this person and everyone was like, she's so funny, she's so fun. And then that dependency builds up where you're like, I need to go out and I need to drink, because people are thinking like, she's really funny. And again, it's that validation, isn't it, that I need to have that drink. And I remember last year when I stopped drinking, right, I just stopped drinking. I remember someone saying, oh, you're going to be boring now. And I thought, I actually don't care. Because what's actually happened in this last year is I found out my true personality, who I am without having alcohol, that I can walk into a room, be actually, you know, so sociable, so, you know, chatty, and I don't need alcohol. I actually don't need it, because like, the confidence has come from within. But going back to that, it was that January, I got myself a personal trainer, and that was it. Like, I started, you know,
game changer.
Yeah, because then I was like, I don't want to be skinny no more. Like, why have I wanted to be skinny all my life? I want to be strong. And that was like, that was it, because then I was like, right, I'm loving this journey. And then it was like a conversation I had with my friend. She was talking, she's like, I've got a personal trainer. She's saying this. And I was like, I know all of that. And I was like, I could do that. And then she's like, why don't you? And I was like, of course I can't. Again, the limiting belief. I was like, I can't be a personal trainer. She was like, why? The next day, I phoned up a company and they were like, of course you can do it. And that was it. I just did it part-time alongside my legal job, started studying for it. And that is really where it, you know, happened after going through that, you know, period of time with my mum.
Yeah, so that's what led to that. That's amazing.
The fitness, because I was like, my mind is getting strong, my body's getting strong. It helped me deal with
your spirit's
grieving.
Getting strong,
yeah, because it's helped me deal with, you know, grieving.
Naturally.
Yeah.
In the best way.
Yeah.
And now look where you are, coaching. And it's amazing.
Well, it sounds, like the future sounds exciting for you at least. So, I'll definitely be watching you as we go along this journey, seeing how you get on. And you never know, we'll have to get you on as a guest again.
I'd love that.
At some point. You might be too big for us.
Yeah, don't forget us.
Yeah, you're going to end up being too big for us. Author, and who knows what happens next. So, no.
So do you have like a message for anyone who's kind of going through like a similar thing or...
If there is anyone, who's either doesn't even have to be a disability.
Just in general.
I think what I would like to tell women is just try to stop getting that external validation from anyone else and just start loving who you are as a person and just fall in love with yourself and, you know, what you bring, because everyone brings something amazing to the world. Everyone brings something different, isn't it? And just start, when you believe in yourself, when you start loving yourself, when your confidence, your whole energy, your whole aura, it affects every part of your life. And yeah, like, don't let certain things hold you back. Don't have a limited belief system. Believe in yourself and just go for it. Like, literally, you live once. That is like all I believe now. You live once, do what you want to do, and just go for it, you know? That's really what I want women to do. Like, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Charan. Thank you for
so
coming on
much.
today.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open, and yeah.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's been amazing.
Yeah, I'm really glad you got in touch with us. So we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.